All right. Thank you all again for your attendance this evening, your interest in the project, learning more about that, and for participating in the input session, which is a big part of this meeting tonight. As I said, I'm Jeff. This is Elaine, and we're here to do the first meeting for the South Douglas Traffic Calming project. I'm going to cover three major aspects of the project tonight. First of all, we do really an overview of the program and how South Douglas got introduced into the program. The second thing we'll do is look at a very preliminary kind of concept sketch for what we think a traffic calming project might look like on the street. And then the last thing is we'll leave you with some next steps, some thoughts about time frame, just to give you set some expectations for where we're going from here. Guys, welcome. Just feel free to pull your chair off there and make yourself comfortable. We're just getting started. So a little bit about the program. This is the neighborhood street traffic calming program. You're probably familiar with it. We've been rolling out a lot of traffic calming projects here lately over the past year and a half or so. It is really focused on residential streets. We don't try to calm industrial streets or commercial streets as much. Sometimes there's some components to that, on a residential street, but we're really focused on neighborhoods because we know traffic can be a real quality of life issue. More often than not, it's a detriment to your quality of life. And so that's what we're really focused on. We focus on physical solutions as opposed to more signage or more striping. Those things can be helpful, and we've got some tools that do that, but we have found that nothing slows traffic down like putting something in the street and making people either drive around it or drive over it, and we find that to be a very effective way to calm traffic. And the last part is we focus on speed reduction. That sounds obvious, but sometimes people will engage the program and ask, you know, how do we shift cars off the street and push them somewhere else? We don't want all the traffic on our street. We have a hard time doing that. We don't really want to do that most of the time. There are some occasions where that is appropriate, but by and large, we're not trying to push traffic to anybody else's street. We try to design the project so traffic stays where it is, but it operates much more responsibly, much slower. So that's a couple of overall aspects. There is an education component. I don't want you to think that we can solve this whole project just by doing what we call engineering changes, just by putting things in the street. It really takes some education focus. Enforcement is great. We love it. We wish we had more of it, but we all know MNPD is doing a pretty important job out there, and they just don't have a lot of resources to park a cruiser and write tickets as effective as that may be. So we focus on the engineering part. That's what NDOT, the Department of Transportation, has in their purview. They are the right-of-way facilitators, and so they have the ability to affect a change in that way. Should I move to the other side now? Try to be over here? Okay, yeah. Well, you'll either have a shadow or you won't be able to hear me probably. One of the key reasons this has become such an in-demand program perhaps, and a popular one for the Department of Transportation is the effect it has not only on traffic, not only on you as homeowners that live on the street, but also pedestrians and other non-drivers that use our streets. This is an urban area. You guys have people walking all over the place. I know you do, and that's terrific. And you've got schools, and you got parks, and you got all of these things that make this neighborhood such a wonderful place to live. But when people are threatened, it can be very difficult. There's a lot of great data out there that shows, you know, in the catastrophic event that there is a pedestrian car crash, the slower that car is going, the higher likelihood that pedestrian walks away. That's pretty self-evident, I think. But when we can target down in that 20, 25 mile an hour range, your chances of survival go way up. And so that's just kind of one of the big picture ideas behind this program, and why we as a city think it's important to slow traffic down, particularly in these neighborhood areas. I mentioned that it was an in-demand program. That's kind of an understatement. When you all got introduced into the program a couple of months ago, during that application window, we had over 400 streets just like this one that had applied in as well. Yes, sir.
Is this like, are you using WebEx to share with people that they have their...
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the web. No, so this is being recorded and it will go to Metro's YouTube channel. Anybody can have access to it after the meeting. Yeah, it won't be live, but it will be on the Nashville.gov webpage. We can talk more about that. Yeah. Sorry, and the people that got the invitation to the WebEx are the same people here. It's just for the people on the street. So yeah, that's why. Probably don't have a very big audience there on the web. We usually don't. But we're doing we have requests for over 400 streets. We do about 50 of these a year across the city. So we say that to say, number one, congratulations, I guess. You're in the program in a maybe an undesirable class of streets, unfortunately. But also that, you know, there's just there's a backlog here. And so we're not getting to as many of them as we may like to. And also that you're not alone in seeing some of the issues that you're facing. This is kind of a common problem across not only Davidson County, but nationally we're seeing it as well. The way the street got inducted into this class of projects is through data. So when the applications come in, all 400 plus of those streets come in, we go out and we collect a couple of different types of data. 70% of the score, the blue pie and the red pie, are really operational characteristics of the street. Speed is a big one, obviously, and also volume. We look at the combination of how much traffic is on the street and how fast it's going. That's the bulk of the score. The other 30% have to do with some of those multimodal considerations we were talking about. So about 15% of it has to do with the fact that do you have sidewalks? Do you have transit? Do you have bike lanes? Y'all didn't score very well in that category because you do have pretty good accommodations for non-drivers. 5% of it you scored really well in, and that is trip destinations. Do you have parks close by? Are there schools, facilities like this one we're in here tonight? If you've got other kind of destinations that make for a good walking trip, that boosts your score. And then 10% of it is there a documented case of a pedestrian crash? I think y'all did have that. I don't have the specifics on that, but a lot of the streets in the top 25 that got selected this round had that, unfortunately. So you roll all of that up, and it gives us a score, and we rate those by put a red line, and if you're above the red line, you get into the program, and y'all were. Some specifics here. Your speed limit is posted at 25, which I think is a relatively recent change. But the speed that the data that we collected showed that 85th percentile speed is just the metric that we use. But that measure that we use on all streets was 38, which means that 15% of the people are going faster than 38. That in the traffic engineering world kind of is the standard by which we say, okay, there's a problem. 15% is a significant enough amount of traffic doing above a certain speed that we would say that's kind of an issue. From a volume standpoint, you're at about 2,500 cars a day. That's kind of middle of what we saw. The program will take anything under 5,000 cars a day. At that point, we say, look, there's probably too much traffic here to do some of the things that are typical in our toolbox. The one that's really unique to this street, we don't have many streets that are as wide as this one. It's about 50 feet wide, curb to curb. And y'all know you've got parking on both sides, and you've also got a center turn lane striped in the middle. So it's just really wide, and it feels really wide, and that probably contributes to some of the speeding that we're seeing there. We like to show this in context a little bit. So South Douglas, we're going from 10th here to 8th here. That's just about 0.4 of a mile. And so that's the part that's in green. This map, by the way, is available on the website as well. It's interactive. You can see everything that's happening in Davidson County, and they're color coded. So green means you're in the program and we're working on it. I didn't zoom out enough, but you would see other green ones if you pan around and zoom around. Blue means traffic calming has already been completed on the street. Blue dashed means there's raised devices. There's like speed cushions or speed humps. And so that might become important if you want to go drive these somewhere and see what does this look like? What does it feel like? How is it going to operate? There's a couple of streets over here, Ashwood over in the other side of, I guess that's Belmont, that have had some of these installed already. There are others as well. And then purple is streets that have applied into the program but have not been selected as of yet. So if you're interested in knowing, you know, where else has already had an application go in, those are the streets that have been applied for. Applied but not selected. They're not denied, so they just haven't been selected. And right now, NDOT is not throwing anybody out. You know, there probably comes a time where you just got such a huge backlog, we just need to clear it. That has not happened. So right now, if you've applied at any time in the past, probably 4 years, it's still in there. That data, we don't refresh the data every time. You know, the traffic doesn't change that much from year to year, so it's just kind of reevaluated against all the newcomers each time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the tools in our toolkit before I show you the concept plan that we have to this point. It's helpful for me to kind of define what it is that we're talking about. The bread and butter, the number one by far tool that we use are speed cushions. You've probably encountered these somewhere around the county by now. They are individual little cushions, little pillows of recycled rubber. They're very dense. They're not rubber like they don't give, but they're also not concrete. So we epoxy and bolt those into place in different configurations. So depending on the width of the street, we can go 2 wide, we can go 3 wide, we can go more. They have those gaps in them because that lessens the impact on larger wheelbase vehicles. And that becomes important when we think about ambulances, fire trucks, those emergency responders that we don't really want to calm so much. We want to have a little bit of a lesser impact. And so they cannot totally straddle those, but they kind of run out on the edges of those. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's tapered a little bit out here on the edges, so they have a lesser impact on those. We do everything we can to make these things go from curb to curb so that people can't drive around them. We have different ways of doing that. Sometimes we might use a little flexible delineator. I know y'all familiar with these. We're just right up here on 10th. You got a whole lot of them. Sometimes we will back the signpost up. We sign most of these locations with a standard street sign. People don't want to run through a street sign, but if we give people any opportunity to drive around them, they will. We know. So anyhow, parked cars kind of play a part in that. Not that we want to use those as an obstruction, but anyhow, they're about 3 inches tall. People are sometimes surprised at that, but even with such a low profile, they do a really effective job at slowing traffic down. They do come in different lengths. So the length from here to here, that's one of our design tools. The shorter they are, the more aggressive they are. So the shortest one we use is a 7-foot speed cushion. And then we can go up to a 10.5, which now is kind of our default around the county. And it goes up to a 14, which if we're more in a rural area and want it to be a little more on the comfort side and a little less on the speed reduction aggressiveness side, we can modify that. So that's the speed cushion. And by the way, these are coming from one manufacturer. So what you may see in one part of town will be the same thing here. We like it for that reason. We've had a good experience with it. It's pretty dependable. They're always the same shape. We know exactly what we're getting. They're holding up well. So the second tool is very, very similar. The only difference really is you don't see those gaps in between. We use these sparingly. We don't use them often, but we do have it in our toolbox if the conditions call for something that doesn't have that gap. Sometimes people will say, you know, we just got a tremendous number of motorcycles or something like that. We do have a few other tools like this. But anyway, otherwise it's the same concept. We are collecting data on these, so just in addition to me saying they're pretty effective, we do have data that's backing this up. We're seeing about a 9 mile an hour on average speed reduction. Of course, it depends on the length of the street and how closely they're spaced and all of these kind of things. So one project is not always the same, but we are seeing really good results from these. So, another tool that we have is more of that kind of on that educational side, maybe a little more than just educational, but when we can immediately give feedback on a car's speed back to the driver. So you may have seen some of these around town as well. We use these a lot in two different situations. One is when there's, like we mentioned before, there's just so much traffic, we don't really want to put those speed cushions or something out in the street, but we still want to do something to try and slow traffic down. We use them then. And then we also use them where conditions won't let us put a speed cushion. So that might be, an example might be a steep hill. We don't put anything if the road is steeper than 8% grade. If it's a real sharp kind of horizontal curve, we try to make these so that cars hit them when they're, you know, level, going straight, and all of that. Or there's just too many driveways. Sometimes we have instances where, you know, we don't put any of these right in front of someone's driveway. You guys, there aren't that many driveways on the street, so that's not an issue here for y'all, but in some neighborhoods that is the case, and so we might substitute this for a set of speed cushions or something. We are seeing some reduction in that. I think here the data is even a little more variable. You know, this says 6 to 7 miles an hour, but the length of that being deployed, I think, plays a part in the effectiveness. You know, will that still be effective 2 years ago as it is when it first goes out? So you got some questions like that, and that data is still being collected. Another tool that we use from time to time is pavement markings, with the idea being, like we mentioned earlier, if we can kind of set the condition that the road is actually a little bit narrower than it is, we might use edge lines to kind of cheat that in and hopefully trick the driver into thinking it's a little bit narrower. That does tend to have a slowing effect on traffic. I'm not sure it would work here. You would need a lot of striping to take up a lot of that room. But anyway, that is a tool that we use. We know that, you know, the broader your vision and the wider the street feels, the faster it tends to go. Another one we don't use very often, we like them, we just have had some issues with larger vehicles being able to turn around them. School buses predominantly are really, it can be really tripped up by these. But traffic circles, we've got them in some neighborhoods around the county, and this is great, especially if you're trying to calm two streets that intersect, something like that, or if you have unique speeding issues related to an intersection there. You got to have a lot of pavement for these. Now, y'all have some intersections that are pretty large, but you do have to have a large swath of blacktop out there to have room to develop this and have it work effectively. Another one we're using in some areas, these are actually two, but more striping changes, bulb outs, which is where we, again, kind of narrow. You see how wide this street was, and it's been narrowed. And we're really focused, though, on that intersection, tightening the radius of the curve there on that intersection, and again, just trying to foster a sense that it's narrower there. We will supplement that from time to time with those delineators just so people can't just keep driving the way they've been doing. And chicanes are something, the closest one here is on Fairfax. You may be familiar with that one up in Hillsborough Village, where it kind of creates that yield street condition where if you've got parked cars and, you know, you're trying to get around them. We've all been on those. You've got plenty in this neighborhood that the street is just so narrow with those parked cars, you can't go fast. You know, you really have to yield to oncoming traffic, and that's great from a traffic calming perspective because you really cannot do it. This tries to replicate that, but again, not something that we use very often. The conditions have to be pretty just right. A lot of times people will say, well, what about a stop sign, or what about other signage, or what about a sidewalk? I mean, wouldn't a lot of these issues go away with a sidewalk? That's not y'all's case, but so we like to give these other resources. If you're not familiar with Hub Nashville, we always like to plug that, hub.nashville.gov, and you can go in there. It's like a clearinghouse for all things Metro. Any requests that you've got, not just Department of Transportation, but if you want to ask about what about a sidewalk, what about speed limits and those types of things that are outside the scope of our program, you can do that there. Anna Dearman is the walking and biking coordinator. Those requests go to her, and we've got some information on beautification as well, for street trees and those kind of things. So those are great resources. Sure.
So, third, going about our street, going from 8 to 10, last third, one speed limit. From the opposite way, outside of the street, one at each and one going from 10 to 8:31.
I would go ahead and do that. We can take that feedback back to NDOT as part of this program, but typically they'll send the traffic engineers out and look at it and make the determination if they need to add more or not. I would put in that request just as a traffic calming program. We're working through that, but it always is great if it comes from a constituent as well as us saying that. I'd encourage you to do that. All right, so here's the plan. I don't know, I've got that little thing could go away. I don't think we're really missing anything there. It just says the name of the street. Wait a minute, I think I advanced it. That's what I want to see. So here's again the street. You're the purple line. We go from 10th. There's that little the old streetcar turnaround there where they're building the new houses. That's 10th Avenue all the way over to 8th Avenue here. So that's the length of the project. The stop sign and signal are just showing those are kind of the breaks for us. That becomes like kind of control points. We're trying to calm everything in between that because the only stops you have are at 10th, and then the signal, of course, there at 8th. And we look at that length, which is again about 2,200 feet, and we chop that up and we say we're looking for an average spacing of something like 400 to 600 feet. There's no magic number, but our experience has told us that if we can get it in that kind of spacing parameter, number one, it's not obnoxious to the people who have to drive it every day, and it doesn't push traffic somewhere else. But number two, it's still close enough together that it's very effective in keeping cars going at kind of a consistent speed along the length of that. There will be a little slowing down at the cushion locations and then a little speeding back up in between, but we try to minimize that. So we try to have them spaced just so that doesn't happen. We're also looking at the presence of, like I mentioned, any driveways, intersections primarily. We're going to avoid those, not be too close to an intersection. And then, as I said, curves, hills, that kind of thing. You don't have any hills. You do have a little bit of a curve here. That this one, we're trying to get one in, so right in between the straight part of that S curve right there before you get to Elliott Avenue. It's pretty boring. Most of these are. Again, this is a concept plan, and all we're really showing on this is we think that this street is a candidate for about 3 sets of speed cushions. We think that feels about right from that along that distance from 10th to 8th. I want to show you one other aspect, but if you've got comments on that, this is a great time. But let me show you. We got some options here. Because of the width of the street, we can't just put 2 speed cushions like we can on a lot of streets and say that's what you get and people are happy. But here, we need to stretch it across a pretty wide distance. So there's a couple of ways we can do that. One is we could just go, it's going to take about 4 straight across, and not only that, but if you can see these little dots, we would need the 4 straight across plus 2 of those little delineators on either side. And I think that's about the minimum. If we take any of that away, the spacing's going to be too far apart here or on the edges that we're going to have drive arounds on that. That's option A, alternative A. On the other side, you got alternative B, where we could do something where the two-way left turn lane is not really used. I mean, some people may get it. FedEx may sit in it. I don't know. You know, that probably happens. But so only at cases where we actually had one of these sets of speed cushions, we could kind of make that unusable. And we would do that by using yellow delineators and kind of build more or less an island out in that two-way left turn lane, so cars wouldn't want to come here and go through there. So it would be one set of speed cushions and then another couple of delineators on the outside of that as well. You may ask, what about parking? You can't park right at the location. We don't really mind if you do, but if we have those delineators there, you won't be able to park. You won't be able to pull through that area. It's kind of like you see here. That's about where they would be set. So it's not enough room. If we allow you to park on the other side of that delineator, that just means that's enough room for a car to go through there. So, but I think it's pretty minor. It doesn't really take parking off the street. It just might move it 5 feet or so. Feedback on that. Some people have a real, opinion on what it looks like, and that's important. We want to be cognizant of that as well. No, I can't. That's a static show. But I don't even know. I don't even know. But the point here is just showing how would it stretch. If you're more concerned about what's it close to, I would look at this. So we've got a set coming in right about here. Is that, I don't know if that's an alley that comes in behind the old Pilgrim Emmanuel site. This is the alley. Yeah. Well, no, we would not want to block the turn necessarily in and out of the alley. That's not what I'm trying to show. What I'm trying to show is how do we just get across the width of the road. And keep in mind, we can move these more than likely. I mean, they're kind of spotted roughly, so you get an idea of this is about where they would go. But what we will do after this meeting is go out and do field work. We'll actually say, this is a little better than here because there's a foam pole or there's a patch in the asphalt. We look at other stuff. We just haven't done that yet. That comes at the next step. We can. Yeah.
Here's the property. Here's the second property in the previous slide. You want to get back up?
Sure.
And if you look at the sidewalk, the sidewalk.
Oh, here? There? Uh-huh.
The one of them, right there.
This one, yeah.
Okay. That's where we have 2 cars total there. So we need the traffic, so that's where people are seeing that's the dangerous.
Yeah, and what I would say to that is whether the speed cushion, let's just hypothetically say it was right here, whether it was here or here or here, I'm not sure it's going to make a huge difference because the idea is we have slowed traffic not only at this location, but remember, they've already come across 2 of these things, and maybe there was one on the other side, I don't remember, but the idea is that we slow traffic over the whole length of the street. So often what people will say is, I got this problem that happens right here. Maybe it's sight distance. I heard we were talking about sight distance earlier. Maybe it's we see kids crossing the street. Can we do something right there? And what our take on it is for this program, if we can slow traffic down over the whole length of that, a lot of those problems are taken care of. That's 90% of the issue is that traffic is just going too fast. If we take care of that, a lot of those other things drop off. So we'll look at that. I mean, it's a good point, and I'm not discounting it at all. And I do think we have some flexibility here on where we put these. So we're happy to meet, but I just want to make that point. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, sure. Sure.
So let's say block the turn lane. Where would you do that?
Well, it would be at all of these. You know, because I don't know that there is a need for the turn lane. That's right at that spot. So I don't think it hurts anything to take that room up. But if y'all were to say, no, I mean, there's FedEx in here all the time. People really use that turn lane for some reason that we don't know about. That's okay. That's the kind of input.
Yellow thing in the top each.
Yeah. Right.
That little line here, that's where people get into that turn lane to wait to turn on the lead.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if that could be, in the drive lane.
Yeah, I think there's still enough room that you would still be able to use the turn lane. Yeah, it would feel a little tighter. It wouldn't be as comfortable as it is today. But that's kind of the point. You know, we're trying to make it so that you can't just kind of go wherever you want to and tighten it up just a little bit. But yeah, and that's something again that when we get on the ground and we're looking at it, do we have enough room? I think we do, but that's a good consideration. This one?
Yeah. People fast and very fast, and then that stop sign, actually another stop sign is on this curve at the end of that island. So somebody comes in, so for people who are trying to go through curves, I don't think they do eastbound, does it? The stop sign there, and there's a lot of weirdness there. So that's very, so that's not, you get completely forward.
Yeah.
People are coming from, like, they're coming from Dublin, and they're coming from the south side of the and they turn to go eastbound. That spot right there, basically, I think people have a hard time seeing there, and so it's, that's definitely like,
Yeah, the whole configuration of that is weird. So you're expecting stuff.
Yeah, for that move. Oh, it's for that traffic?
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know about that with the traffic, like, basically below that, the people who are driving west now, like, I got it right there. Yeah, right, I don't know if it's something there, people have traffic, whether it's curve.
Well, it sounds like they almost have the right of way.
They do.
They do.
There's no stop sign from Douglas. The stop sign from
I thought you were saying for traffic coming this way. Yeah, I think I see it. Right. So these people almost have the right of way. They get to keep going. Right.
Each guy can go around that curve. They all have the right to go to that stop sign. And that actually,
Okay.
But that's not really a turn. It is technically. No one moves the pictures. So you're waiting crossover on the on the fence. And you can't tell the guy going straight, or we're going to take that turn. You can try to hold the way for everybody. You can turn right and you can turn left. This stop sign is the way it's positioned too. People turning left, and there's a stop sign ahead sign right here. People turning left think that they don't have to stop. It's really hard to see. People go here and take a left thinking they have the right of way and go all the time. If this just went left and this just went right, it would take a lot of that. And replacing where that stop sign is.
We can mention that and let them take a look at the operation of that whole intersection. I think for this program, I mean, we really are pretty limited in what they want us to focus on traffic calming on Douglas. This sounds like something we need to look at, and this as well, and how all of this interacts with each other. I'm thinking, I mean, this first speed cushion though will have an impact on that. Of course, it stands to reason the closer we get, the more of an impact it will have on that. But that's something we can take a look at. I think I'm a little afraid that is a tight enough turn there that we probably can't put another set right there. We can look at it, but that would be another.
I really also know when people are slowing down to go over the speed bump, it's really going to confuse those at the stop sign even more, because they're going to think they're slowing down to stop when they're not. It does not look like it's supposed to be. It looks like they looked at the right way if they're making a left because of the placement of the stop sign.
Yeah.
And video.
No, we'll go drive it. We'll, yeah, we'll. At this stage, we use the pictures. Yeah, we definitely will, and we'll take a look at that. I'm still not sure it changes the number of speed cushions or where we would place them, but it may change other things that we do in that little area right there.
You're not sure where anybody's going.
Okay.
And who's stopping?
Yeah.
Who's doing,
Yeah.
And so you have to like hope for that and stand out there and thinking somebody's going this way or not.
Right.
So it's a very weird intersection.
Okay. Well, I'm still thinking about doing this again. Maybe all of that will be going slower than it is now, and so it's confusing as it may be. It may at least give us a little margin to issue. But
Cross traffic does not stop sign. Under the stop sign.
Yeah. I wish I could tell you I'll do it. I won't do it, but yeah, we will certainly pass that along. But I would request that as well. Yeah. On stopping Douglas. Yeah. So the addition of new stop signs where there isn't one now is it's kind of a totally different issue. It sounds like it would be part of this for sure. It goes through a whole different process. There's a commission that actually has to go through the Traffic and Parking Commission, and so but you can still request it. You can say, hey, would Metro take a look at that? They'll do a traffic count. It has to meet certain warrants. You can certainly bring the council members in and then also put it in that hub, and that'll start that process.
When you're going south on them, when you turn, come out on the south, or you can cross, it's a weird thing, but you can even 3 cars parking. On the 8th Avenue, on the 40th Avenue, you cannot see. You think you can. I know I can see because I look at it. But people who don't know that, you think you're thinking it's such a wide street. Why are you in the car? Then I have to go out, get into the drive, so that I can really see it. Sometimes 2 cars, there's sometimes something there. It's a very honest thing. You have to do with the curve and the bill.
And as you were talking about that earlier, I almost understood that it kind of makes a difference where the car coming on Douglas is positioned. Like, if it were out in that turn lane, could you see it better?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that may be something that we can do with these devices to kind of position traffic where we would want it. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to push them out into the turn lane, but I'm just trying to think through, is it better to move them away from the curve toward the center, or, okay, so that would help sight distance. Okay. Yeah. No, I can definitely understand the issue. So we'll take a look at that and see if there's a way we could help position.
So, you know, there's tapering like on the warrants we noticed, it's tapering in, it's east on the warrants down. And so
those blow out.
Yeah. The cars of the parking there are and I'm sitting there, and he's saying, in that spot, it's a real problem with talking about it, they keep everything. And also, likewise, at the corner of South Douglas going east, where South Douglas is not, there are people parking, and big cars, they're parking there, 2 feet. the same exact problem there, so we could just favor it, so that there's some parking available.
Do you think they're parking illegally close to the intersection? In other words, you get 30 feet. Well, if they're doing, I mean, we could use bulb outs here and stripe that to physically keep people from parking within 30 feet. I really can't do more than that, but we could take a look at that if you think that would help. But if you think they're parking where they're supposed to be, it's just hard to see. Okay. Okay.
And also,
Yeah.
a lot of them have to know their driveway.
Right. Sure.
So they have their,
They're supposed to. Yeah.
they have a little pad back and they have their street. So I believe that they,
No. Yeah. We're not trying to.
Would it be helpful in a way if we were to take like a similar slide like this and mark it with our feedback on it and resend it to you? As a neighborhood, so that there would be at all helpful with our comments and thoughts on it?
I don't mind at all. Yeah, we can certainly provide that. If you want to, I'll give you my email at the end, and if anybody wants that, we'll be glad to send out this to you.
It's being requested on here too. So,
Okay.
yeah, if you wouldn't mind,
Yeah.
we can kind of select what we can thoughts. That way you're getting 100 emails.
No, that'd be great.
And then we can just say, our little nuances and things that might be helpful with the plan.
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
So, I think what you made, which is that we saw that about Jim, but we're not using all these problems. What if my car was coming for about an hour on the street? And that would drop down to like 30 also. Really
It's going to help. Yeah. I'll bet so.
that is closing down is better.
Yeah.
And this is the process that we should, so file up number of crosswalks, there's no crossing. That would get something.
Yeah, it would. And we hear that a lot of requests for crosswalks. You know, a lot of times I wish it were a tool that we have, we don't. So, yeah, I would. Yeah, that's right. It still is. I agree. But you have to put that in HUB as well.
What is your opinion on which is the better way to go, which is more specifically for
You know, I think if the use of the turn lane is important to people, you know, I would use A. Do you like the looks of all the little sticks? A lot of people don't. So A, they get hit. They will get hit.
Is it noisy? Very calm to A, other than might be a little more expensive?
If you're out in your yard, you'll hear a car going over them. It's not like it's a big crash or anything, but no, it's not disruptive, but you will hear it.
Yeah.
That's destruction.
I'm just trying to ask a question to make your life as good as possible, because I don't know anything in that specific area, so I just want to ask all the questions. I'd rather hear going to that part. True. It would tell the options, whether noisy at all. Kind of pros and cons.
Yeah. I think the noise is going to be the same because you're still going to be, you know, slowing and going over that thing and keep back up out of it. So you're not going to hit any more of these than you would under that situation, probably.
My point is that if there is someone in the car that delivers that is a normal lane on the street, drivers who go out of their way to go in and turn and get around. And in fact, some drivers just use the turn lane rather than go on the lane. So I really prefer because they're not even the model.
Oh, okay. So people can't drive around in parked cars?
And narrow street too is also another secondary use.
Yeah, we need concrete. I don't really need curves like that. Yeah. Yes.
Probably some striping. We may can do, you know, hatch it out with yellow striping just to make it more, and then have those things. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, I certainly see what you're saying. So if there's everybody get that. So if there's cars parked, FedEx pulls up here, that at least gives you the ability to drive around it. You would hope they wouldn't pull up right here with this thing, but they probably will. But they don't really pay much attention. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. We haven't gotten there yet. I'm going to do that. Absolutely. We would, good question, would it be the same route? We would like for it to be. I think there's something to be said for the consistency of that as you encounter each of those, that they all look the same, so you know what you're getting. So, yeah, we would like to do that. This is number one. We will have a second meeting. Yeah, but then if y'all want to get together as a community and do that, but most neighborhoods are not that organized, so people might just say, I like this, I like that. But, you know, it always helps if there's a rationale. I think that makes as much sense as anything. But if people just said, yeah, but I don't like all the little things sticking up, I mean, that's valid too. So, operationally, I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference. Something to chew on. We don't have today. We still got, you know, some distance to cover, and I'm going to talk about that next. So, but I will give you some contact information here at the end. So a little bit about process and where we go from here. We are again at meeting number one. You're already in the program. By the way, it's funded. This is no longer like, are you trying to get there or not? You're in the program, and the project will happen. It's just a matter of getting through these other steps. The next thing we will do after tonight is get on the ground. And if y'all get together and say, hey, we would like to meet and let's walk it together, that's okay. We can hold off on our ground review until y'all are ready to do that. So that would be the next step, is the design. Then we would get back together after that and do meeting number two, where it'll basically be the same process. We'll send the cards, we'll have it online, we'll do all that. It won't be a lot different. We'll rehash some of that, but we'll really spend more time focused on the plan that we've come up with, and then that next step, which is the ballot. I'll cover it a little bit here tonight, and if there are specific questions, I'll be happy to entertain them, but we cover more of that in meeting two. There is a ballot process, so where I say the project is it's in the queue, but we do need a formal buy-in process. And that's where we send out cards and do an actual online balloting process. And so you actually vote yes or no, you and your neighbors. And again, I can answer more questions about that. And then we roll out of that into construction. So a little bit about the question about time frame. We're here at meeting one tonight. We're not even scheduling any meeting twos on this latest group yet. So we're still scheduling meeting ones up through June at this point. So it's going to be into the summer before we come back to a meeting two. After meeting two, the ballot, if we say we've got consensus, we want to do the ballot. The ballot is a 6-week period. So that's another month and a half. If it passes, we then order the materials. That's about another 2 months to get those in. We don't, Metro doesn't stock those. And then once the materials come in, they get it on the contractor schedule. They like to have another 8 to 10 weeks. So we're deep into the winter time at this point. You know, if everything goes just according to the process. So we like to say that just so you don't have the expectation that we're going to be out here, you're going to be having a July 4th cookout and people are going to be going over speed cushions. It's not going to happen. So we're down into the winter time. So any questions about that process? Yeah, so the ballot goes to people just like this meeting was announced to people on the street. You have to be a property owner, and your property abuts the section of street we're looking at. And we do send it to the property owner. So if you or a neighbor is a renter, they won't get it. The property owner will, wherever that is. Yeah, no, Metro doesn't just walk away from these, but it does go to kind of a lesser thing. It might be radar feedback signs is typically what we're doing if a petition fails. Some striping changes or, you know, anything that's kind of like not controversial, you know. Something will be done, yeah. Good questions. Any other? As I mentioned, this whole presentation is being recorded, and there's our information. I need to get rid of that. I can just tell you, you can still see his email. Gil Thomas is the top name there. He's our program manager. He's actually a Metro employee. I'm not. Elaine's not. But Gil is, and Gil's great. He's very responsive. Y'all probably set this meeting up through Gil, and so he's there every day. Feel free to touch base with him, email him. I'm Jeff. I'm the one below. Same with me. Feel free to get back to us. And again, like we mentioned, if you'd like a copy of that, I can coordinate with 1 or 2 people. I don't really care. If I get emails asking for that slide, we'll send you that concept slide so you can have it. Feel free to contact either one of us. Could you repeat that first part again? Right. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's right here. So you can go to TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. All of this information is there. That interactive map is there. This meeting, the recording will be there. Applications for the next window will be there. All of that information is at that website there. You can see old plans from other neighborhoods if you're interested, I guess. They've started adding the results of ballots. So if you want to see, how many are passing and failing, we often get that, people are concerned about the ballot. I'll just tell you, I think we've done 80. I think we've balloted about 80 projects, and we're at about a 90% pass rate. They're overwhelmingly passing. Is it,
like you don't respond, it's not a yes or no situation?
Correct. So on the ballot, what we're looking for is 2/3 of the people that do respond are in favor. If you don't respond, you just don't count one way or the other. Just like a real election. You only count if you vote. That is the last slide, but I'll be glad to go back, cover anything else. Any other questions? You're welcome. Thank you all again for coming and for participating. Again, this meeting will be posted within the next couple of days on that website. And feel free to get in touch in between. You're welcome. Thank you all.